Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be on this knife, and as you can see, this is the New York Knife Co. Barlow in pearl. So this is another knife from Cutlery, and I recently did a video on the Morgan Barlows that I got from Cutlery, both a pearl and an abalone. And I decided that while I appreciate the history of the Morgan stamp, I'll show you this abalone one also here. And if you would like to see, the full video on these knives, I will put a link to it up here. But I decided, even though I do really appreciate the history of Morgan, its vaulted place in the history of pocket knives, American pocket knives, I liked the plain look of the New York Knife Co. bolster. Now, I do like a bolster stamp, but one thing I have kind of considered, I haven't decided if I'm going to or not, is a plain bolster would allow for engraving. So I could get the Barlow Bearcat Club logo engraved on there, and I think that would be really cool. But I got this, or I got one of these, and unfortunately, it had some pretty noticeable cracking at the pins. So I'll show you now. So this is the Pearl New York Knife Company Barlow that I got that had a kind of chip or crack at one of the pins. Now, Cutlery said that because this material is so sensitive, they had to hand pin these versus riveting them like the abalone and the other cover materials. So it's definitely, a difficult material to work with, and, that's understandable, right? It's a very beautiful and it's kind of an exotic material. I love this pearl. I think that it's really, really beautiful pearl. You can see that it's got lots of color in it. Really, really beautiful. But this particular one had some cracks. So if you look here at this spring pin, you can see that there's a little bit of like a chip in that from pressure on the spring, or I'm sorry, pressure from the pinning. You can see that hopefully there. It's kind of hard to show with how my camera focuses, but you can probably see it pretty well there. And then another on the cover pin on this side. And actually now I'm noticing there might be a little bit on these two pins, but not as much, but more so on this cover pin. You can see a pretty noticeable chunk that's kind of chipping out there around the bottom of that pin. So, I don't know if it would cause any issues where more would chip out or anything like that, but it's just something that's not like my other pearl Barlow from Cutlery. So here is the Morgan Barlow in pearl, and you can see that this doesn't really have that. Doesn't really have any of that more noticeable chipping. It also doesn't have quite as much of the color. This is a really nice pearl, so I kind of hate to get rid of it, but again, this one doesn't really have that chipping around the pins like this one does, and at least here on this pin and here on this pin. What that looked like, just so you can see kind of the first one that I got. And I reached out. I wasn't really sure if I should or not, because I think pearl is pretty prone to cracking. I've actually noticed since then that my Morgan has some also, which I'll show you. But I reached out to Cutlery and said, hey, is this normal? Would you be able to replace it? They said that they could replace it, and so I sent it in, and they sent me a replacement. And so this is the replacement. And the one that I had some really nice color to it, some, blues and pinks and greens in there. And so I was a little bit worried that I wouldn't get as nice a piece of pearl. But man, this replacement is super, super nice. Look at all of that character and chatoyance, the different kind of levels to it and direction. I think that this is honestly a good bit better than the one that I had originally. Now, this one is also for sure better with the pins. I will say that there are some very slight kind of chip looking things. I don't even know if you can see it there. And then where else was there? Another one? Yeah, very little bit here and here. But I do feel that it's better than the previous one. Now, you know, I'd love it if it didn't have any chips or cracks, but I think it is what it is. They said that this is a very difficult material to work with, and they did have to hand pin these versus the abalone. But anyway, this is a replacement, and you know, it's a $220 knife, which with this pearl, I think is a pretty reasonable price. It's 100% made in the USA. I'll show you now the Schatten Morgan that I have. You can see it's got, you know, nice, it's nice pearl for sure, but it definitely doesn't have as much of that color. This one really has a lot of color to it. And as you can see here, hopefully, this one does also have, and here, this one does also have some kind of chipping, or I'm not even sure what to call it because it doesn't seem like it's chipped off. It's just like a layer of it is kind of affected. So it does have some of that. I think it's probably pretty common. If you got one of these, I would love to hear, you know, look at yours and tell me if you have that type of thing. But aside from the cracking, it's really, really nicely made. I would say a 6.5, maybe 6.5 pull, maybe 7, but really a nice pull. I like the plain unetched blade. It's got New York Knife Co. on the tang and Made in USA on the other side. No blade play, a nice thick blade here. Kind of an unusually thick blade, you might say, but it looks nicely ground. Very, very snappy action. Sits deep within the frame, which, you know, if you watch my channel, you know I love. I hate proud tips. Sits nice and deep within the frame, but is easily pinchable. No blade wrap that I can feel. In the handle here, let's see if I can show you where it says that. Maybe like this. You can see here it says, "May God bless you." I like that. I think it's a nice, interesting touch to have that inside on the handles there. And just really a nice knife. I'm honestly really happy with it. Despite the fact that, like I say, I had to send the original in and get this one back, I'm really happy with it. I think that this is a really, really nicely made knife. And honestly, GEC doesn't use pearl anymore. They haven't done pearl knives in a long time, at least not on any regular runs. And I think that there's probably a reason for that. And this might be the reason that it's really hard to keep from chipping and cracking. So I really appreciate that Cooper Cutlery, you know, was willing to use this, because it's cool to have a pearl Barlow in my collection. I do plan to carry and use this one. I think I am going to get rid of this one because I don't know that I need both, but then I'll have a pearl and an abalone, and really just two very fancy, very cool handle materials for a Barlow, and really nicely made. I think, you know, aside from clearly standing behind their product, I've had other people tell me that they've had really good experiences with Cooper Cutlery's service and warranty. You know, they have some issues here and there. I think they have made, you know, huge jumps in the quality of their knives since the first ones that they put out. Really big jumps, but they still have issues here and there, and it's great to know that they do, you know, stand behind them. I think that they're very proud of the knives that they're making, and that's a good thing. So, you know, I do appreciate that they stand behind them, and I'm super excited to see how nice these knives are turning out. I can't wait to see what they have coming next. You know, there's a whole bunch of old patterns and styles of knives that Queen used and made that they could make at Cooper Cutlery now that they have the machinery and dies and such. So it'll be really interesting to see what they come out with next. But I think that these Barlows were super nice, particularly these ones in the exotic handle materials. And just one more time, get a look at that beautiful pearl. And I got this directly from Cooper Cutlery's website. And man, is that some pretty pearl. So I just wanted to make a video on, you know, my good experience with Cooper Cutlery's warranty and service, and give you a good look at that New York Knife Company Barlow from Cooper Cutlery. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics. And make sure you subscribe to the email newsletter there. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.